Hello and welcome back. As I promised last week, here are some models from the 1980s. We've got this wonderful Coronation Scott service running around the layout today. And if we keep an eye out, you'll see I've been getting a little carried away with the station approach. She makes a lovely noise around the track, although the coaches do have the plastic wheels, sadly, rather than those lovely silver seals. Just look at this lovely shot here. She swings into this point work. I've been having real fun playing with the track and experimenting, just as I thought I would. Into the station, it has grown rather, hasn't it? And we'll bring it gently to a stop, just next to the Class 5 there. We'll just have a quick look at the 1983 Hornby Railways catalogue. Fairly impressive looking image on the front, a bit of trickery with the photography there, well before computers. I think that will be done in camera, as it were. So we're just going to have a quick flick through. We won't dwell too much on the catalogue. So loads of items, very extensive range, all that 01 equipment there. So quite a lot to look through. Very colourful pictures, although not quite as large, some of them. Although that's quite a nice double page spread, isn't it, of those wagons. So just have a flip through a couple of more items. So looking quite impressive, that coach, isn't it? So, but the locomotives and things compared to the earlier catalogue we were looking at last week are much smaller and not quite as impressive, are they? The locomotives don't sort of jump out at you as we were looking at before. So we're well into the 80s here, as we said last week. I have some models from the 1980s to look at. So as we've seen the old Coronation running around the track, and there she appeared in 1983 as what's classed as a late arrival. So maybe the rest of the catalogue was put together, and then she was added along with these models as late additions to the range. So quite an interesting place to appear, and we've got a whole group of models being introduced to the range. So quite a number to fit into your catalogue, really, right at the last minute. And then we've got a nice dealer stamp there on the back of the top right of the back of the catalogue there. So we'll pop that down, and we'll just have a swift look at the locomotive in its box. So there we have it. It's quite an impressive image, isn't it? A very sort of, it's not quite line art, but it's a process image, isn't it? Just taking all the colour and most of the information away. But I don't know how long they use this imagery for. I think this is the only locomotive I've got in a box quite like this, with an image like that. And there we've got the information there. R.685 Coronation L.M.S Streamlined Express 462 locomotive, blue silver livery. So we've got the Hornby Railways on the box there, and then we've got the information on the yellow sticker on the end of the box there. So again, R.685 L.M.S 462 Coronation Class 7P. So there's not a great deal going on the back of this box. No information about the prototype or anything like that. I think it was much later they started doing that, although the Flying Scotsman did get an element of that back in the late 60s. So we'll just ease open the box here. I've already part opened it. And again, it's a horrid, nasty polystyrene in here, so excuse the sound. We'll see if we can ease it out of the box. Now we do have quite a bit of paperwork here. Let's pop that down there. So we've got a nice bit of paperwork here relating to 01. The other piece must have stayed in the box, but let's just have a look at this. This is fitting instructions for fitting the modules for 01. So that's quite interesting suggestions here. So I did have 01 in my early teens, and I never did get on that well with it, or perhaps I was probably too young to appreciate what it was that was trying to go on there. So there we go, got various locomotives and sections to see. But, quite interesting stuff. So we'll just pop that to one side and we'll see if we can fish out the other piece of paperwork. So it's hiding under the face card here. We'll pop out the face card. It's quite thin. It's almost paper rather than a card. So there we go. We've got a general instruction sheet. I think we saw one last week and had an interesting black and white picture at the bottom, and there we go. We've got Hornby's model of the Princess Royal locomotive to be released in 1984. It is depicted in its original form with a 3,500 gallon type tender. But as you can see, this model here we've got the Coronation is R.685, 18th of the 7th, 1984. Now, I believe this locomotive was available between 83, as we've seen on the back of that catalogue, right through till 85, and it was re-released again in the 90s between 92 and 94. Let's just have a swift look at that one, at the various instructions there. Here, lovely folds in the paper, cracking away there, can't you? It's a nice crisp piece of paper. I don't think it's been referred to too many times. Let's see if we can have a look on the other side. Excuse me, I'm getting that the wrong way around there. So again, as I always say, it is quite nice to have the paperwork. So we'll just get rid of that for a second. So there we have this wonderful two-part piece of polystyrene. It just lifts off. I'm not sure if there is some additional packing from the inside missing, so we'll pop that to one side. And we'll just hold up the model and have a quick look at it. Excuse the sound of polystyrene there. So she is lovely and matte, as we've seen her running on the rails there. Quite an impressive looking thing. I'm not quite sure. I think the basic moulding for the body of the locomotive may be the same as that used on the earlier Triangle model released in 1970, 72-ish, but that was in high gloss. So we'll just pop that down. We'll have a swift look at the model. We'll have a look at the tender first. So unlike the earlier model from 1970, this is tender drive. We've got the old Ringfield motor in there. We've got that nice reliable connection there between tender and locomotive. But I think the paint finish on this is quite nice. It's a little bit nicer to look at perhaps than the earlier Triangle glossy model. I do like a glossy model, but I think this just has something about it. These lovely fins on here, aren't they? And we've got a ladder moulded into the back of the tender there. So I think they feel like plastic buffer heads in there, and you can probably just see you could probably get a vacuum pipe on there. I think this model probably came with a vacuum pipe for fitting on the back of the tender. We do have two screws in it, one here and one in the top there, to secure it to the tender base, and two traction tyres. So again, potentially, like the model we saw last week, could be quite a powerful thing, especially on the level ground. So we'll just pop out the locomotive part. We'll have a look. Lovely wire handrails there. They're just beginning to tarnish if you have a look quite closely there. I don't think this model's done a great deal of work in its life. So lovely speed stripes. I don't know whether that's what you call them. Go faster stripes. Must have looked amazing when these locomotives were first introduced to the railways. So we have a slightly later style chassis in there than the earlier 70s one. It's a complete rework, I think. And, relatively smooth running, excuse me, smooth running wheels. Not quite as free as that Class 5 we were looking at last week, but they do run very, very nicely. A lovely sound on this System 6 track. And again, we do have some detail in there. I'll try and get an insert so we can have a better look in there. That's all in shadow at the moment. See that trailing bogie here. Nice plated wheels on there, and we've got the connection there to the tender to supply the power. So this one hasn't had the modification with a wire onto it, but it's not that bad. It doesn't hesitate very much, and it seems to have good continuity. But I think overall it's quite an impressive looking thing. It's very difficult to hold this, really. I'm not trying to get fingerprints on it. And we can see that lovely printing on the side there, Coronation. That crown is probably just filled in, I think, a little bit. Not quite as nice as perhaps it could be. Lovely detail across the top there. So I think if we just pop this down for a moment, we'll have a swift look at the model from 1970 or thereabouts. I don't have any dating, any paperwork for the earlier model, so it is in this nice triangle Hornby box with the smart cardboard sleeve, which somebody's spilled oil on at some stage, and there we've got the information there. L.M.S. 462 Coronation Locomotive, blue. I think the catalogue number is 864 here. Possibly a price just written in there, but I can't quite make that out. So we'll just pop her out quickly and have a look. I'm not going to extract her from the yellow plastic. We'll leave her in place. I think we'll get that little bag out there. That just helps keep the moisture out of the models, even in a centrally heated home. All this cardboard tends to pick up a little moisture along the way. You can see that really rather beautiful thing, isn't it? So I do quite like the matte finish of this later one. Let's see if we can move those up and have a look at both of them together. I'm not going to try and hold them both up together because this polystyrene tray is rather weak and this tender is quite heavy. The base is entirely made out of cast metal, so it gives it quite a bit of weight. But rather impressive models. Perhaps we'll see both of them running a little later on, although I don't think we can really double head them with no couplings on the front ends. And there she is, all sitting at the station, this wonderful Coronation Scott service. I've got 2 brakes and 3 composites there, and we'll just give the engine a little power now and we'll work our way out onto the main line. That is a fairly effortless start. Even though it hasn't got the silver seals, it is quite free running with these plastic wheels with plastic pinpoints. Lovely clatter there, and you can see at a point we've just gone over there that's gone in since last week. And into the curved point there. A little bit too much power, trying to compensate for the curve. Out onto the main line, and I will get those points closed before we come back around again. So I've got somebody doing that for me. Charging down the edge of the layout there and up behind the station. You can see that has developed a little bit. I've got some track work going in front of it, which should get better by the next video, so we'll have some more running options. Lovely snake effect coming around the edge of the layout now and back under the gantries and clattering across that diamond crossing. Much smoother than the Super 4 diamond crossings, it has to be said. And charging off into the distance there. So I've just taken the top off the tender and the locomotive so we can have a closer look at them. But firstly, just have a swift look at the tender from the earlier model. We should just point out that this is probably a Hornby 00 moulding or casting used for the tender base there. So I think that black metal plate or bent piece of metal there just screws on to hold the wheels in place. You've got plastic spoked wheels on metal axles, and there is something rattling around in there. I've never been able to get to the bottom of what that is. The tender top doesn't separate from the metal base, so we'll just pop that down. Oh, and just have a look at the buffers. They're all moulded in. They're part of the casting, as far as I can see there. So we'll just pop that down, and then we'll have a look at this fine 80s model. Now, when I was looking through this and looking at a service sheet to show you, I sort of noticed that the service sheet that seems to be associated with this model that I can find doesn't really represent what's going on with the model. Maybe I've missed something or just got the wrong sheet. So this model seems to take its power from these wipers, or the collection from these wipers installed here. I'm pointing at the wrong side. Now they just slot in, and you can see them behind the wheel there, rather than relying on taking the power, running through the wheels and then collecting it through the axle, through the chassis, and then back along through this connection here. It seems to be a bit more reliable in taking it directly from the rim of the wheel on the back side. We can just see now how that works. If I hold that up, see if we can get some focus on it. And then that's sort of hardwired, if you like, to that sort of rivet or connection in there. So from front pickup, rear pickup, straight to there. And then if we have a look here, if I take this off, I did mention last week I'd come across a sprung-loaded connection, or for want of a better word, we'll call it sprung-loaded. I had mentioned earlier I didn't think this one had been adapted, but I think Hornby have done the adaptation that somebody had done manually to that Class 5 we saw last week. But I'll show you the service sheet in a second. It doesn't really represent what's going on here. But as I say, perhaps I've missed a service sheet or can't find the original. So the service sheet is dated 90s rather than 80s. So there we go, we've got that sprung-loaded mechanism there. So it keeps pressure. The whole thing is pressured. So it keeps contact with metal the whole time, so the chances of it floating in mid-air and loss of continuity are much, much slimmer. So it is a very deep hole there, and that screw runs all the way down. So I think that's proved to be a much more reliable method of doing it. It certainly has improved it, I think. There's far less sort of little sticks and jolts where it loses continuity, but this has gained a little bit of a bend. Over time it was like that when it came to me, and the valve gear just hangs marginally lower on one side than the other, but unless you're looking for it, you really don't see it. And again, let's just have a look at this service sheet before we go too much further. Just see if I can pick that up. And there we can see it's for the Streamlined Coronation, but it is dated 92. So that was with the later release of the Coronation. So maybe they simplified the model, but it'd be nice to see if we can find the other service sheet. If we look here, it doesn't refer to a spring being in there at all. It doesn't really show the wipers. It shows provision for them here on this plastic moulding, but it doesn't show them as a part. So I don't know whether they changed the model in the later release or not. It also shows the potential there for a traction magnet. There's certainly no traction magnet in this particular model. Let's just hold that up. I don't know whether we can see. There is a hole in the chassis. I don't know whether we can see just through under there. There is a hole behind that wheel where certainly a traction magnet could have gone. I don't think we're going to be very successful. I think you can just see light through behind that wheel there. But this model certainly doesn't have a traction magnet in it. But interesting. But probably I've just missed finding the correct service sheet. So we'll just pop that down. We'll have a look at the tender. As I said earlier, this one does have a fully cast metal base, making it quite heavy along with these extra weights. We've got the screw hole there and there for the two screws which come through the tender. We'll have a look at those holes in a moment. Not quite sure why it would need two, really. Seems a little bit overkill to have two securing screws for the tender top, very light item. So we've got the 2 traction tyres. I think they're originals. They're doing the job at present, so I have left those in place. And I hadn't used the model really at all. I just run it a couple of times over the years. So I was giving it a bit of a light grease, sort of a white grease on the bearing there, and a little bit of light lubrication on the cogs here, the drive gear, which has smoothed it out a little. And it's a relatively quiet runner for the type of model that it is. Again, I think those buffers, they are definitely plastic, just pushed into the metal bodywork there. So fairly tidy overall condition. Let's have a look at the tender top. So I had a good look around the outside of it before. Let's see if we can have a look on the inside. So there's a little bit of black overspray in there. And we do have a number and perhaps a letter right down in the base there. I think we've got a 2 and a 5, and I don't know whether that's a 0 or an O, a smaller character down there. I don't know whether that's quite focusing. I know we've got the hole there for the 1 securing screw, and the other one just there, the tiny little what look to be like self-tapping screws with a cross head on the top, Phillips type cross head. I'm not sure whether they're the originals or not. They seem to do the job, but they don't sit quite flush to the plastic work. But maybe that's because it's been removed and reinserted a number of times over the years. So we'll just pop that down and we'll have a quick look here at the body. As I say, I think that might be the same or a very similar mould, marginally adjusted mould from the earlier 70s one. And it does have these little plastic ties which just poke into the bodywork and hold the handrail roughly in place. And the handrails come through the body there. You can see that where the securing screw goes in there, we've got a very large spacer which would go between the bodywork and the chassis at the front end. Correspondingly, a very large screw there, and a flathead screw there, and a tiny little one to go at the rear there and onto the back of the chassis. I think we do have made in Great Britain just in the bottom there. I don't know whether we can just get focus on that. It is very tiny, and Hornby just under there where my thumbnail is, you can see that. But I think there's a little bit of black overspraying in there, but again, all quite tidy. And we do have a little cab detail. I'll get an insert picture in there, I think, and we'll get back to the railway, I think. So the coaches came along in 83 as late arrivals too, and here we have them: R423 L.M.S composite, Coronation Scott livery, and R423 L.M.S brake third, Coronation Scott livery. So they do make a smart set, don't they? So I think they coming along in 83, they lasted till 87, and I think there was a re-release in 92 to 94. I think the Locomotive may have made an appearance again, possibly in a set at that stage. So I do have 5 of the coaches, as we've seen on the railway, got 2 brakes and 3 composites. One of the brakes is in the wrong box. This is, I think, is in a composite box there, so wrong numbering, but the coaches are perfectly all right, all the same. So I've got a couple of them out, and we can see there is 2 slightly different styles of boxes here. So I think these ones probably come from the 90s, and this style of box probably come from the 80s run of the coaches, but the colour seems to be a reasonably good match on them. So here we've got the brakes. So this is numbered R.685, I think. Yeah, that's correct. So we'll have a look at that. So I think we've got basically the same coach as those L.M.S. maroons that we've got on the railway as well, and they're just been sprayed up in these colours. I don't think there's a great deal of difference to them, apart from the decoration. Of course, we do have the white rims, but I think that's probably a mistake. I would have liked to have seen silver seals on there personally, but I think they moved to white rim wheels at that period. I don't know whether it really adds anything to the coach. I suppose that's quite a personal thing. I always think the white rims look quite odd on the models personally. So we'll just have a look through there. If we look inside, we do have some detail on the inside. So I think we've got seating in there. And if we look through the other side, we can see the corridor detail. Let's spin that around again. And we can see the nice doors on the corridors there. They're having trouble with the coupling there. Looking through that side. So they've got quite a lot of use out of this set of moulds, I think. So we'll pop the brake down. We'll have a look at the composite. So this is R.422. And again, like the other one, printed up nicely with those silver lines running down the side, and Coronation Scott. Lovely logo sitting underneath the centre window there. I think we've got the same end details. And again, this is the non-corridor side. I think we've got built in Britain or made in Britain. Let's see if we can get that in focus there. So again, some fairly convincing underframe detail. And we've got plastic hoops, or D-shapes, shall we call them, on the couplings there, that absorb the impact from harsh couplings. So we'll just have a quick look in the 1971 catalogue, I think. So I mentioned earlier we'd have a look at some station buildings, so I think this is quite an interesting period. Buildings seem to have turned red instead of maroon. Many of the same items which had come along in 1962 when Super 4 Track came along have been retained, with the addition of some quite interesting new items. We've got the R74 station roof there, sold as part of a set as well. This set could be made into sort of different permutations, and the sort of things you could do with it are probably quite limitless, really. And just recently I've acquired a couple of those, so you can imagine where I'm probably going to go with this. So if we just have a swift look at the station so far, there I've got the early Triang Hornby Coronation out. We'll have a go with that shortly. So I've got these extra lines running into the station. I think I'd said last week I'm planning to extend these platforms. So I think that's going to be quite a good idea. And if we pan round here, I've got a station canopy in. So I've got another one to go in, and some buildings. We'll just have a look. I got the canopy and some buildings together back in the summer as a whole bunch of things, one of those eBay purchases. I'm not necessarily sure this is a Triang one, because I think these were made for a number of years. I think they're still currently made, although possibly in blue. I'm not sure of the R number, whether it's the same. But what I was planning was to get the catenary to run round just on the one line through the station. So if we follow this round here, we can see at the moment the overhead finishes on this line here. So my plan is to, when I get around to it, is to run that into the station where the Coronation's sitting there, and that'll run under the canopy. I think that'll be quite an interesting thing. We'll run it all the way around and out through the other side of the station and back onto the main line. And I think some canopies down here as well. So I have, as I said, got quite carried away with the System 6 track. And I think I'm going to stick with it for a little bit. And certainly until I get the rest of the room sorted out. And we'll expand down here. I mentioned I might put a turntable in there, but there's a collection of buildings. But I'm thinking I'll probably get a turntable, perhaps. Definitely some elevated track in here. But I think I'm just going to stick with this System 6 to experiment with while I get rid of this piece of furniture and all the items just stored away. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. Just stored away somewhere in the rest of the house. I know I'm aiming to build a desk or a workbench in the corner there instead of being camped out on this old trestle table in the corner here, which is a bit wobbly and right next to the door, which isn't terribly convenient at the moment. So if we just pan slowly back around, and we can have a look at some of these station items here. So they're all from different periods by the looks of it. I've got another canopy here, so I've got the associated sort of supports to go with that. So they're quite fragile things, although they're all dirty. Everything needs a bit of a clean. Since I bought it, I haven't cleaned anything up, so there's a good layer of grime on most things. So whilst I've got that one standing at the station at the moment, we'll probably give it a good clean. So there's a bag of bits there, which we'll use to make things work. We've got a bench. What sort of name? We've got Dundee on there. That's the name on that bench. So I think there's a variety of names. Lots of these useful little bits. I already had some of those. The station platforms I got down are a mixture of ones I already had in boxes, packed away, and those used on the other railway. Let's just take these off here. This is quite an interesting, I think this is either a late 70s style box, Hornby Railways box here. There's been a bit of scribbling on the label there, but that's platform pieces, I think. So I think these platform sections are still in the Hornby Railway catalogue. I'm not sure whether they have the same catalogue number. I know they're sold with some of the station kits. I've had a quick look on the Hornby site, but I'm not having a lot of luck with the Hornby site. It seems to be littered with sort of pop-ups, and it's very annoying. Can't seem to get rid of them. So that's definitely a made in England one. Some of those I do have out there on the station at the moment are made in China, so they're definitely still in production. And here we've got a modern signal box. So I don't think I can pull that one out of the box. No, I don't think I'm going to be able to get that out of the box one-handed. It's quite a tight fit, but we've got a nice red signal box there in a Hornby Railways box. As I say, these span different periods, but all came as the one lot. We've got one of these waiting rooms here. I think somebody's painted the interior in black there. I don't think they're normally black. I don't think the windows were glazed by this point. I think the earlier maroon ones had sort of white out windows, didn't they? But these all seem to be unglazed. And there I've got the large station building there, although that was called the upper floor building, wasn't it? In the earlier range I had that as a double deck station, and on the last railway, see they've added doors. Let's just put this down. So they've got a door feature there. I'm not sure the maroon one had a door there. I should have had both out to have a look at. But you see this still definitely carries Triang's name there, doesn't it? See if we can get that in the light so you can read that. Interesting, looks like there may have been provision for lighting in there at some point. As I say, that could do with a bit of a clean. And I've got the tower, sadly missing the clock face, but I think we'll be able to just copy the clock face from the other building, and I think next week we'll have the clock face on there. So quite an interesting item that will just clip into there. If you have a look in the catalogue, we'll be able to just have a look how that works. See there, we've got the clock tower on top of the building. So I think that's going to look quite impressive. And now we've got one of these the waiting rooms here, or the ticket office. It could be either really, couldn't it, depending on how you position that. And again, that's in red. So I think we'll get some of these buildings on over the next week and see how we do. I'm not having anything set in stone at the moment. I'm just having quite a bit of fun playing with this stuff. I don't know whether that might go quite nicely there. I had that sort of thing in mind, really. So it could all be quite interesting. But now I think we'll just get this coronation into one of the other lines. We'll see if we can have a little bit of fun before the end of the video and move some of this stuff around. So let me just have a look how the point work set. So that's going to come out here. That's over there. So I think that's all good at the moment. So we'll give that a little bit of power. I am so tempted to electrify some of these and fix a position to work from. Let's see if I get the right direction with the controller here. And we'll just flip this point. Let's see if we can run that backwards. We'll run that up to the buffer, I think, not into it. There we go, a little bit calmer than last week. So that's what we just need to attend to the point work. So we want to switch that one. And then we'll have a look what we've got to do to get the other coronation out of here. So this is set correct. So we need to open that one, and I think we're open at the far end. So we'll just run it right the way around. It seems it's facing the opposite direction. We'll pick the coaches up from the other side. So let's see where she is. See if we'll get that to move away really gently. See another point there I've got to go in. Oh, sorry, I've put another point in for something extra to go in there. So I'm just going to swap hands for a second and see if we can get a better look at that. So we'll continue around the layout. Now I can't remember whether I've got that point set correctly or not, so I'm just going to stop it there. We'll have a swift look at the point now. So I need to flip that one. Yeah, I had to take that catenary mast out when I put in the point there, so I need one with a different base to go there. That claw type won't fit in that gap there. And while we're at it, we'll just switch this other point. So this is either the other layout was a little more fun. You could stand into one position and make all of this stuff happen. So I think maybe we may well have to electrify some of these so we can have a bit more flexibility. So ideally That Coronation's now going to run through here, along here, and we'll back up to the coaches sitting all the way over there at the station. A good plan. Again, excuse me, wobbling as I'm changing hands on the camera. So let's see if we can remember which way we're going to get this to run. Quite sure whether that's got it or not. Let's just have a look. It's on a curve there. I'm not quite sure that was a good coupling. No, I don't think we've got a very good coupling there at all. Just took a break and made a fine adjustment to the coupling on the back of the Coronation there. It was running, it was dropped or bent down a little bit on the low side. It was having trouble hooking up to these plastic couplings on these 80s coaches, so we'll see if we can do better this time. So we'll give it a little power and see if we can get a coupling of some sort this time. I think we have that. Let's just have a quick check before we roll away. That's looking quite encouraging. So I think we'll give that a little power and we'll watch her depart the station. So I think if we remember to throw the points here, and then we'll catch up with her coming around the other side of the railway. I think that's probably about it again today. Again, the video's turned out to be relatively long again, but we've covered quite a bit. There's always going to be some more to do, I think, as time moves on. I'm having a great deal of fun. I know I said the other layout was more fun because we had the electric points, but I've had just a great time with all of this and setting it up and experimenting. As I say, I think we might get a turntable in here, perhaps not by next week, I don't think. I think I'm going to work more over the week on the development of these parts. Let's see if we can zoom this camera out a little bit while we're talking. I haven't quite got the hang of making that act smoothly yet. It's not a happy connection between the gimbal and the telephone, so I think we're going to develop that over the course of the week, get a few more rails in, and we'll see how we do with it. So I'm not sure what sort of model we'll have running on the railway next week, but Thanks again for watching, it's hugely appreciated. Goodbye now.